The sun was hot above the lecky sky when the iron gate of the mansion slid open with a slow, heavy groan. Madame Hannah, 75 and small in her wheelchair, lifted her eyes. Jacob, her only son, walked in hand with a beautiful young woman in an Ankara dress. His wristwatch flashed like a tiny star. His face carried the smile of a winner. He stopped in front of his mother and spoke in a calm voice that felt like ice. "Mom, I got married 2 days ago." The words hit her chest like a nail. Madame Hannah's left hand flew to her heart. Her right hand shook as she reached for Jacob's sleeve. "Jacob, you got married yesterday and you did not tell me? While I am still alive?" Her voice trembled. The world around her went quiet, like the birds forgot how to sing. Jacob took a slow breath and looked past her, as if she were only a wall. "Please don't make a scene," he said. The young woman beside him lowered her eyes. "Good afternoon, Ma," she whispered. "My name is Adana. People call me Natalia." Madame Hannah looked from the girl's kind face back to her son. Tears gathered in her eyes. "Jacob," she said softly, "have you forgotten? I raised you alone. I worked until I fell and could not walk again. I gave you everything. Is it not wise to let me see your happiest day?" Jacob's mouth bent into a dry smile. "Mom, don't start." He gave a short laugh that did not sound like joy. "We are already married." The old woman's fingers slipped from his sleeve. Her chest rose and fell, slow and heavy. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then the scene froze like a photo, and the sound of the gate locking shut snapped the moment in two. 2 days earlier, Jacob had not come home. Madame Hannah waited by the jasmine plants she liked to water in the mornings. Her wheelchair creaked as she rolled herself to the shade. She kept listening for his car and the small beep it made when he tapped the horn. Nothing came. A neighbor walked by and greeted her. She smiled back, but her smile was thin. She thought of a tiny boy in brown school shorts who used to run to her and hug her legs. She thought of a young mother standing at a big gate at 5 a.m., holding a food flask for the child who had to leave early for school. She thought of rain falling on a construction site years ago, how her hand slipped on a wet plank while she carried a bag of cement on her head so she could pay her son's final year school fees. She remembered landing on the concrete with a cry that sounded like glass breaking. She remembered the doctor saying, "Mama, I am sorry," and how she said, "It is well. Let my boy finish school." And he did finish. Not just school, everything. Jacob grew into a sharp man in a sharp suit. He built Jantech from a small room into one of the biggest tech companies in Africa. Reporters asked him questions. Cameras loved his smile. People called him visionary. At first, he called his mother every night, then every other night. Then, sometimes, he did not call at all. When he came home, he came with noise, friends, music, brightness, plans. When he left, the house returned to silence, like a stage after the lights go out. The silence was the hardest part. Her late husband's photo Saturday. He'd been a military man, brave and neat. He paid the supreme price when Jacob was 5. "For our country," everyone said. "For our family," she told the little boy who cried into her wrapper at night. So she waited now in her chair, 2 days of waiting, and told herself not to worry. "Maybe he is busy," she said. "Maybe he is on a trip." She rolled her chair, watered the jasmine, and prayed. When the gate finally opened, her prayer was still on her lips. "Who is this lady with you?" she asked at the gate, voice soft but steady. "Hope you will marry her and give me grandchildren." Jacob's laugh was light and cruel. "Mom, I'm already married." Her mouth parted. For a second, she forgot to breathe. 2 days ago? Her voice broke. "And you did not consider me a family anymore?" Natalia's fingers tightened around her small purse. "Ma, please, I am sorry. Jacob raised a hand. "Natalia, you don't know my family matters." "Family matters?" Madame Hannah repeated, trying to hold the edges of her heart together. "Jacob, what have I done wrong?" "Nothing," he said. "That's the point. Then why?" Her voice was barely a thread. Jacob looked around the compound like he was checking the paint. "Because I'm tired of being judged, of anyone seeing the old woman in a wheelchair and calling her my mother. People talk, Mom. They talk." His voice grew cold. "I won't be embarrassed again." Natalia turned to him, eyes wide. "Jacob," she hissed, hurt and shocked. "How can you speak like that?" He ignored her. He walked past his mother into the house. Minutes later, he came back with a thick envelope and a hard face. He dropped the envelope on his mother's lap. The corner pressed into her leg. "The house is yours," he said. "Documents inside. Worth 300 million naira. That should cover everything you ever did. Don't call me. Don't look for me. Don't embarrass me again." The jasmine smell turned bitter, like smoke. The old woman blinked at the papers as if they were fire. "Jacob." She reached forward, palm open, asking for his hand like she had when he was 5. He stepped back, her hand hung in the air, alone. Natalia stepped between them. "Sir Jacob, stop this. Please, this is your mother. You cannot do this." He didn't look at her. He didn't look at anyone. He slid his sunglasses on, even though the sun had shifted behind a cloud. "Let's go inside," he said to Natalia. "No," Natalia said, voice shaking. "I can't follow you like this. Greet your mother. Do the right thing." "I said let's go," he answered, pulling her gently by the elbow. She resisted, then gave up and followed him inside, but stopped at the door to glance back. She saw the old woman wipe her eyes with the back of her hand, slow and careful, like she was afraid her face might break. Inside the living room, the air conditioner hummed like a cold bee. Natalia faced Jacob. "How can you treat her like this? She raised you." Jacob placed a suitcase on the couch and started to pack in quick, clean moves. "Shirts, laptops, passport. This is not your business," he said. "Don't enter what you don't understand." "I understand only one thing," Natalia said, tears burning. "This is wrong." He zipped the suitcase, lifted it with one hand, and walked out. On the porch, he faced his mother again. His mouth was a straight, hard line. "I'm leaving for good," he said. "Sell the house if you want. I'm done." The papers on her lap slid in the wind. One page flipped and caught on the wheel. The old woman's fingers tried to press the papers down, but they trembled too much. Her wheelchair rolled a little. The small slope near the steps felt steeper than before. "Jacob," she whispered, "please. While I am still alive." For the first time, his eyes wavered, just for a heartbeat. Then he looked away, turned, and started toward the car. The engine roared to life, loud and proud. "Wait," Natalia called, running after him. "Jacob, please." He pulled the gate remote from his pocket. The gate began to slide open, metal grinding on metal. Wind pushed through the compound. The pages fluttered harder. The top sheet tore free and danced across the tiles like a white bird, then flew toward the steps. Madame Hannah reached out to catch it. Her chair rolled. The wheel nudged the edge. Down the road, a horn blasted once. The engine growled. The jasmine bent in the wind, and Madame Hannah's wheelchair tipped forward, just as a shadow rushed in from behind and grabbed the handles. The chair jerked to a stop on the very edge of the step. The old woman gasped, heart hammering, eyes wide and wet. Slowly she turned to see who had caught her. The face she saw made her breath freeze in her throat because it was someone she never expected to be standing there at all. The wheelchair jerked back from the edge of the step, saved at the very last moment. Madame Hannah gasped, clutching the armrest with trembling fingers, her chest pounding. She turned her head slowly and froze. Standing behind her, hands gripping the wheelchair handles tightly, was Natalia, her son's new wife. For a heartbeat, the two women just looked at each other. Hannah's eyes were wide, filled with shock and unshed tears. Natalia's face was pale, her lips pressed together, her breathing quick from the sudden rush. "Ma," Natalia whispered, her voice shaking. "Please, be careful. I couldn't let you fall." The old woman stared at her, confusion mixing with pain. She had not expected kindness from this young lady Jacob had dragged into the compound without warning, and yet, in the moment when her own son walked away, it was this stranger who had saved her. Hannah's lips quivered. "Thank you, my daughter." But before Natalia could say another word, the roar of an engine cut through the air. Jacob's car sped out of the compound gate, leaving behind a trail of dust and silence. He didn't look back. He didn't even notice what had just happened. The gate clanged shut. Hannah's tears spilled down her cheeks. She turned her face away, ashamed to let the young woman see her brokenness. But Natalia knelt gently by her side, placing one hand over the old woman's trembling fingers. "Ma, I don't know why he is acting this way," Natalia said softly, "but please, don't think I agree with him. You are his mother. You will always be his mother. I can never take your place." Those words pierced Hannah's heart deeper than a knife, but this time it wasn't pain, it was relief. A fragile hope that someone in this house still saw her as human. She squeezed Natalia's hand weakly. "My daughter, thank you. You don't know what these words mean to me." Inside the mansion, the echo of Jacob's footsteps had faded, leaving the house unnaturally quiet. The maids were gone. He had already moved them to his new residence in Ikoyi before the wedding. The massive living room, once filled with voices and laughter, felt like a hollow cave now. Natalia helped Hannah back into the cool interior. The old woman's hands trembled as she adjusted herself in the wheelchair, her face pale with exhaustion. Natalia quickly rushed to the kitchen, her heels clicking against the marble floor, and within minutes returned with a glass of warm water. "Please drink this, Ma." Hannah took the glass slowly, sipping like each drop weighed more than gold. Natalia sat on the low stool beside her, watching carefully. For a long moment, silence stretched between them until Hannah broke it with a soft, bitter laugh. "Do you know, my daughter?" she said, her voice quiet but steady. "I once dreamed of this day, the day my son would bring a woman home. I imagined being there at the wedding, smiling, clapping my hands, thanking God for blessing me with grandchildren before I die. I gave up everything, my youth, my happiness, even my body for that dream. And now," she shook her head slowly, tears welling again. "Now I hear of his marriage like this, as if I am no longer alive." Natalia lowered her gaze. She couldn't bear the weight of the old woman's pain. "Ma, I don't know what to say," she whispered. "I didn't even know he had not told you. When he brought me, I thought you were already aware." "It is work's untrusted skill." Hannah's eyes narrowed with a new light. "He didn't tell you either." Natalia shook her head. Her lips trembled. "The wedding was rushed. He said it was better that way. He promised he would explain later." The old woman closed her eyes, her chest rising and falling heavily. "So it was not only me. Even you, his wife, are walking blind in his shadow." Natalia blinked back tears. "Ma, I love Jacob, but today I saw a side of him that scared me. The way he spoke to you, his own mother, it was wrong." Hannah gave a tired smile, her wrinkled face softening. "You are still young, my daughter. You may not yet understand, but life will teach you. A man who dishonors his mother has already planted the seed of his downfall." Natalia shivered at those words. They echoed in the quiet house like a prophecy. That evening, after Jacob had left without a goodbye, Natalia remained behind. She moved through the silent kitchen, cooking jollof rice with her own hands. She arranged the food neatly on a tray and carried it to the dining table, where Madame Hannah sat waiting, her frail hands resting on the wheelchair. When Natalia placed the tray before her, Hannah looked at her in disbelief. You cooked this?" Natalia smiled faintly. "Yes, Ma. Please eat." The old woman's eyes grew wet again. "My son's wife cooking for me. In my old age, I thought I would die without tasting such kindness." She reached for Natalia's hand again. "May God bless you, my daughter. May he never let you know the pain of being abandoned." Natalia swallowed hard, her throat tight. She thought of Jacob's face as he dropped the house documents in his mother's lap, his words sharp and cold, and she wondered, was this truly the man she had married? Later that night, as the compound grew still and the crickets sang outside, Madame Hannah sat by the window of her room. Natalia had gone upstairs to the guest room Jacob insisted she use when she stayed over, but Hannah could not sleep. Her eyes roamed the dark ceiling, her heart heavy with memories. She thought of the sacrifices she made, the youth she surrendered, the back-breaking work that had put her in this chair, all for Jacob. And now, at the twilight of her life, he had left her behind. She lifted her face to the sky and whispered a prayer, her voice breaking. "God, if I have done wrong, forgive me. If I have failed Jacob in any way, show me mercy. But please, do not let my son be lost forever." A single tear slid down her cheek. The moonlight touched it, making it shine like silver. In the guest room, Natalia lay awake too, staring at the ceiling. Her heart was torn. She loved Jacob, but the image of his mother's trembling hands and broken voice would not leave her. She closed her eyes, but the sound of Hannah's words echoed. A man who dishonors his mother has already planted the seed of his downfall, and as the night deepened, both women, one old and broken, one young and troubled, drifted into uneasy sleep, not knowing that the storm had only just begun. The next morning would bring news that neither of them was ready to face. The following morning, the mansion was quiet again. So quiet that even the ticking of the old wall clock in the sitting room sounded like a drumbeat. Madame Hannah wheeled herself slowly to the compound. She liked to wait under the jasmine plants, where the air smelled sweeter, though her heart was heavy. Her eyes searched the gate again and again, hoping her son might return to explain, to ask for forgiveness, to undo the pain of yesterday. But the hours passed. Noon came and went. Only the sun and the whisper of the trees kept her company. Inside the house, Natalia moved about quietly. She had stayed overnight without telling Jacob. She prepared breakfast for the old woman, brushed her hair, even cleaned the corners of the room. Yet in her heart, she carried a fear Jacob would soon find out, and she wasn't sure what would hurt more, his anger at her or the guilt of leaving his mother alone in this state. At midday, she returned to the compound with a bowl of pepper soup. "Ma, you need strength," she said softly, setting the tray on a small wooden table beside Hannah's wheelchair. The old woman smiled faintly, her eyes tired but grateful. "My daughter, God bless you. When I look at you, I see the daughter I never had." Natalia's throat tightened. She lowered herself onto a stool beside her mother-in-law and took her hand. "Ma, please, don't cry anymore. Maybe Jacob will change. Maybe he just needs time." Hannah sighed deeply. "I hope so. But I fear pride has blinded him. A man who despises his own roots will one day stumble. I pray it does not destroy him before he wakes up." 2 days later, Jacob returned, but not to see his mother. He came to gather the last of his belongings. His car screeched into the compound, and he stepped out wearing dark sunglasses and a fresh designer suit. Natalia rushed to meet him. "Jacob," she whispered, glancing back at the window where Hannah sat watching. "Please, she is still hurt. Just speak to her. Just greet her." But Jacob brushed past her, his voice cold. "I don't want to talk about it again. I've moved on." "Moved on?" Natalia repeated, stunned. "From your own mother? From everything that drags me down?" He snapped. "I didn't ask to be born in a wheelchair home. People already talk behind my back. I won't let them laugh at me anymore." Natalia grabbed his wrist. "Jacob, listen to yourself. She gave up her life for you. How can you say this?" He yanked his hand free. "Don't enter what you don't understand. I've given her the house. Isn't that enough?" "Enough?" Natalia's voice cracked. "No amount of money replaces a son's love. She doesn't want the house, Jacob. She wants you." But Jacob was already turning away. He carried his suitcase, dropped it into the boot of his car, and slammed it shut. Hannah had wheeled herself to the edge of the veranda. Her frail voice carried across the compound, soft but sharp enough to pierce the air. "Jacob, my son," she called. For a moment, his step faltered. He turned slightly, his sunglasses hiding his eyes. Hannah stretched out a trembling hand toward him. "If this is the last time I see you, remember this. I loved you with everything I had. Even my legs, even my life. Don't forget it." Her hand hovered in the air, shaking. Jacob hesitated for the briefest second, then climbed into his car and drove off without a word. The gate shut again, leaving behind only the echo of the engine fading into the distance. Natalia ran to Hannah, kneeling beside her wheelchair. "Ma, I'm so sorry. I thought he would at least answer you." But Hannah's hand dropped weakly onto her lap. Her eyes were glassy, her lips pale. "My daughter," she whispered, "I think my journey is almost over. He does not see me anymore, but I pray that one day he will understand." That night, the old woman grew weaker. She ate only a few spoons of rice. Natalia fed her. She complained of a heavy chest, but when Natalia begged to take her to the hospital, she shook her head firmly. "No," Hannah whispered. "Don't waste your energy. Just sit with me." So Natalia sat beside her late into the night, listening as the old woman spoke of her past, of her husband who never returned from war, of the nights she carried cement at construction sites, out of the mornings she rose before dawn to fry akara and pay Jacob's school fees. By midnight, Hannah finally drifted into sleep, her breathing soft but uneven. Natalia sat there, watching her, praying silently. Eventually, her own eyes closed. The following day, Natalia could not come. She had errands to run and meetings Jacob had arranged without her consent. She planned to return later in the evening, but time stretched. Evening became night. The next day came, and still she could not escape. It wasn't until the third day that she rushed back, guilt gnawing at her. As she stepped through the gate, a strange smell met her nose, sharp, sour, heavy. Her heart skipped. She ran inside, her heels clicking fast on the tiles. "Ma?" she called. No answer. She hurried down the hallway and pushed open Hannah's bedroom door. The smell hit her fully now. Her hands shook as she reached for the light switch. And there on the bed lay Madame Hannah, still, silent. Her eyes closed, her skin pale, her hands folded loosely on her chest. Natalia froze. The tray of food she had carried slipped from her fingers and crashed to the floor, the plates shattering. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "No, no, no." She stumbled forward, falling to her knees beside the bed. Tears poured down her cheeks as she reached for Hannah's cold hand. "Ma, please wake up. Please, I'm sorry I didn't come sooner. I should have been here." Her sobs filled the room, echoing against the walls. She wept not only for the woman she had lost, but for the cruelty of the son who should have been there. Through her tears, she pulled out her phone and dialed Jacob's number. When he answered, his voice was casual, almost irritated. "What is it, Natalia? I'm busy." Natalia's voice shook with grief. "Jacob, your mother is gone." There was silence. Then a sharp reply. "Why were you even there? Didn't I tell you to stay out of it?" And the line went dead. Natalia stared at the phone, disbelief mixing with horror. She called again and again, but he never picked up. Finally, wiping her tears with trembling hands, she called the authorities. Madame Hannah was taken away, and arrangements were made for her burial. On the day of the funeral, the chairs stood half empty. No music, no crowd, her only son, the one she sacrificed her happiness and pleasure to raise, was not there. Only Natalia, dressed in black, stood by the grave, her shoulders shaking with sobs. And as the soil covered the coffin, she whispered, "Rest well, Ma. If Jacob will not honor you, I will." But in her heart, another decision had already begun to take root, one that would change her marriage forever. For as she stood at that lonely grave, Natalia knew she could no longer live with a man who could abandon his own mother. The day after Madame Hannah was laid to rest, the air around the mansion felt heavier than ever. The flowers she had planted by the veranda seemed to droop, as if even they mourned her absence. Natalia sat in the living room, her black mourning dress still clinging to her like a shadow. She stared at the wall, silent, while the memory of Hannah's gentle voice echoed in her mind. A man who dishonors his mother has already planted the seed of his downfall. Her phone buzzed on the glass table. It was Jacob. For a moment, she thought he had changed his mind, that he would ask if his mother had been given a decent burial, that guilt had finally softened his heart. She answered quickly, "Hello?" But his tone was flat. "Why are you not home yet?" Natalia swallowed hard, anger bubbling in her chest. "Home?" she repeated bitterly. "Jacob, your mother is in the ground. Your mother, who raised you, who gave up her life for you. She died alone because you abandoned her. And you dare ask me why I'm not home?" Jacob sighed impatiently. "Natalia, don't start again. I told you to leave my family matters alone. She's gone now. It's over. What do you want me to do? Cry in public and let the newspapers call me weak?" Natalia's hand shook as she gripped the phone tighter. "Cry in public? Jacob, you didn't even cry in private. You didn't come. You didn't call. You didn't care." Her voice broke. "And now I see who you truly are." She ended the call before he could answer. The following week, Natalia gathered her strength and made a decision. She went to the High Court in Lagos and filed for divorce. The clerk's pen scratched across the papers as if sealing fate with each stroke. When the documents were ready, she carried them in a brown envelope, her heart pounding but firm. She also requested the presence of 2 policemen, just in case Jacob's temper flared. That evening, she drove to his new mansion in Ikoyi. The house gleamed like a palace, with tall glass windows and polished marble floors. The security men at the gate recognized her and opened without question. Jacob was lounging in the living room when she entered. He wore a silk shirt, a glass of champagne in hand, as though nothing in his world could ever go wrong. He looked up lazily. "Finally you're here," he said with a small smile. "I was beginning to think you would stay sulking forever." Natalia's lips tightened. She placed the envelope on the table between them. "Jacob, this is for you." He frowned, setting his glass aside. "What is this?" "Divorce papers," Natalia said firmly. her voice steady even as her heart raced. Jacob's eyes widened. He grabbed the envelope, ripped it open, and scanned the papers quickly. His face hardened. What nonsense is this? Divorce? Natalia, we haven't even had a proper fight in this marriage. What's wrong with you? Natalia stood tall, though her voice trembled with emotion. What's wrong with me? Jacob, the problem is not me, it's you. If you can treat the woman who gave up everything for you, who sat in a wheelchair because of you, like she was nothing, then what will you do to me? I can't stay married to a man who abandoned his own mother on her deathbed. I refuse to. Jacob rose to his feet, anger flashing in his eyes. You dare lecture me? After everything I've given you. I never asked for wealth, Jacob. Natalia cried, tears rolling down her cheeks. I asked for love, respect, humanity. But you gave me shame. You gave your mother pain. And you gave yourself a curse. Jacob froze, the word curse hanging in the air like a dark cloud. Natalia wiped her tears, her voice low but sharp. You told her you couldn't stand anyone seeing her in a wheelchair as your mother. Do you know how wicked that is? You made her die with tears in her eyes, Jacob. You killed her with your silence. Jacob's face twisted, but he said nothing. He looked away, jaw tight. Natalia picked up her handbag and walked to the door. She turned back one last time, her face pale but resolute. Our marriage is over. Don't call me. Don't look for me. I'm leaving before you destroy me the way you destroyed her. And with that, she walked out, the policeman following quietly behind her. For the first time, Jacob was left truly alone. The mansion, though filled with expensive furniture, felt empty. He sat back on the couch, staring at the divorce papers. His mother was gone. His wife had left. Yet his pride still whispered that he was right, that he had chosen the path of strength, not weakness. But deep inside, a seed of unease had been planted. Days passed, then weeks. And slowly, his empire began to crack. The first blow came from a major contract Jantech had with a multinational bank. Rumors of financial irregularities spread, and within days, the deal was cancelled. Jacob brushed it off, convinced it was jealousy from competitors. The second blow was harder. Government investigators announced a probe into Jantech for fraud and corruption. Jacob laughed bitterly when he saw the news on television. Lies, he muttered. But his laugh didn't last long. Within days, his company's accounts were frozen. The third blow nearly crushed him. His personal accounts, hundreds of millions of naira, were seized. His cars, and even his new Ikoyi mansion, were listed as assets to be confiscated. In less than a month, the billionaire CEO, who once commanded boardrooms, was reduced to a man on the edge of ruin. Jacob sat in the darkness of his half-empty living room one night, his head in his hands. He had sent away most of the staff, unable to pay them. His phone buzzed again and again with calls from creditors and angry partners, but he didn't answer. Natalia's words haunted him. You killed her with your silence. He pressed his palms over his ears, trying to block it out, but the words echoed louder in his heart. One afternoon, unable to bear it anymore, Jacob wandered out into the streets. His once polished shoes were scuffed, his shirt wrinkled. Passers-by stared, whispering, wasn't this the great Jacob of Jantech? On a quiet road, he met an old man with a long white beard, leaning on a walking stick. The man stopped him, peering into his tired face. Young man, the old man said in a deep, calm voice, do you know why your world is falling apart? Jacob frowned, too weak to argue. Why? He muttered. The old man's eyes were sharp. Because the only person who gave her life for you, who prayed for you, who loved you without asking for anything, she is not happy with you. Until you kneel at her grave and beg for forgiveness, nothing will work for you. Jacob's heart pounded, his lips parted, but no words came out. The old man tapped his stick twice on the ground and walked away, leaving Jacob rooted to the spot, trembling. For the first time, Jacob felt real fear, not of poverty, not of shame, but of a curse deeper than anything money could fix. And he knew he had to find his mother's grave. The old man's words echoed in Jacob's mind like thunder. Until you kneel at her grave and beg for forgiveness, nothing will work for you. That night, Jacob couldn't sleep. He tossed on his mattress in the half-dark mansion that had already been stripped of most of its luxuries. His company was gone, his accounts frozen, his friends had disappeared like mist in the morning Sunday. The only faces he saw clearly when he closed his eyes were those of his mother and Natalia. He sat up suddenly, sweat on his brow. Where is her grave? He thought. He had not attended the burial. He had not even asked. Shame pressed down on him like a heavy stone. There was only one person who could help him now, Natalia. 2 days later, Jacob stood outside the gate of a mansion in Victoria Island. His clothes were wrinkled, his beard untrimmed, his once polished shoes covered in dust. The security men looked him up and down with disgust. Who are you looking for? One of them barked. Natalia, Jacob whispered, his voice hoarse. Please, I need to see her. The men exchanged glances. Madam Natalia does not entertain strangers. I am not a stranger, Jacob cried, desperation breaking his voice. I am her husband. The men laughed bitterly. Her ex-husband. And look at you. Do you think she wants to see you in this state? As the guards pushed him back, Jacob raised his voice. Natalia, please, it's me. Just 1 minute. Inside the compound, Natalia was seated on the balcony, reading. She frowned when she heard the commotion at the gate. Rising, she walked out. When her eyes fell on the man at the gate, her breath caught. His once proud figure was broken. His face was tired, eyes swollen from sleepless nights. He looked nothing like the Jacob she had known. Jacob, she whispered, stepping closer. The security men moved aside reluctantly. Jacob's knees buckled as he fell to the ground before her, tears streaming down his cheeks. Natalia, it's a long story. I've lost everything. I have nothing left, and I know why. It's my mother. I wronged her. I abandoned her. Please, take me to her grave. Let me beg her spirit for forgiveness. Natalia's heart ached. She wanted to be angry. She wanted to remind him of every cruel word he had spoken. But looking at him now, humbled, shattered, human, she sighed deeply. Get up, she said softly. I'll take you. The next morning, they drove to the cemetery. The air was heavy with silence, the kind that made every sound echo louder. The graveyard was calm, with rows of crosses and headstones standing like silent witnesses. Natalia led Jacob through the narrow path until they stopped before a fresh grave marked with a simple headstone. Hannah Okafor, beloved mother. Jacob's legs gave way. He dropped to his knees, his palms digging into the earth. The words on the stone blurred as tears filled his eyes. Mom, he cried, his voice cracking. It's me, Jacob, your son. I failed you. I forgot everything you did for me. I let pride blind me. I was ashamed of you, and now I am ashamed of myself. His body shook as he pressed his forehead to the soil. I thought wealth made me a man, but without you I am nothing. Please forgive me, Mama. Don't let my soul be lost. Don't let me die cursed. He sobbed until his clothes were wet, until his voice grew hoarse. The cemetery was still, but in that silence, Jacob felt something shift, like a weight slowly lifting from his chest. Natalia knelt beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. Ma was not wicked, she said gently. She loved you, Jacob. Even when you turned your back, she prayed for you. I believe she has forgiven you already. Jacob raised his face, streaked with mud and tears, and looked at the headstone again. For the first time in years, he felt small. Not the billionaire CEO, not the man of power, just a son. In the weeks that followed, the impossible happened. The court reviewed his case and found no evidence of corruption. The frozen accounts were reopened, and Jantek was cleared of most allegations. His cars and properties were returned. Slowly, contracts began to come back. But one thing did not return, Natalia. She never did. No matter how many times Jacob pleaded, no matter the gifts or apologies, Natalia stood firm. Jacob, she told him one evening, your mother forgave you, but I cannot be your wife again. I saw how you treated the woman who gave you life. If you could do that to her, what future would I have had? I wish you well, but I am moving on. Jacob's heart broke again, but this time he did not fight. He accepted her decision, for he knew she was right. Months later, Jacob sat quietly in the old mansion his mother had left behind. The jasmine by the veranda bloomed again, filling the air with its sweet scent. He wheeled himself to the spot where his mother used to sit, resting his hand on the armrest of the chair she had once loved. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to remember her laugh, her sacrifices, her love. He whispered softly into the wind, "Thank you, Mama. I will live the rest of my life in your honor." A single tear slid down his cheek, but it was not just sorrow anymore. It was also peace. For Jacob had finally learned the truth his mother had tried to teach him. Wealth fades, power crumbles. But a mother's love and the respect owed to it lasts forever. And though he was still alone, though his heart still carried scars, Jacob finally understood that redemption does not erase the past, but it gives a man a chance to live differently in the future. As he sat there in the quiet, the scent of jasmine surrounding him, Jacob whispered again, "Rest well, Mama. Your son has finally come home." What is your view about this story? If you were in Natalia's shoes, would you have remarried Jacob? Where are you watching from? If you enjoyed this story, comment, share and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.